Okay. So, ulitin natin yung ating example number 2 sa case 2 ng integration by trigonometric substitution. Naputol kasi yung video natin. So, doon sa ating nakaraang video. So, ang given natin, integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 squared. So, ito yung ating solution number 1. So, i-rewrite natin yung problem. So, meron tayong integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 squared. Divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 quantity squared. So, this is also equal to the integral of dt divided by, so yung t squared minus 60 plus 10 quantity squared equal this sa square root of t squared minus 60 plus 10 raised to 4. Raised to 4. Bakit? Ang ibig sabihin ng square root ay raised to 1/2. So 1/2 times 4 equals 2. After that, yung t squared minus 60 plus 10, susulat natin the form of a squared plus u squared or u squared plus a squared. How do we do that? So we do that by completing the square. So magko-completing the square tayo. No. So we have integral of dt divided by, and then we have square root, and then t squared minus 60. So sa completing the square, ang gagawin natin, yung coefficient ng t na 6 ay di-divide natin sa 2. Kaya rin nun, yung result ay square natin. So, 6 divided by 2 equals 3. And then squared. So, the answer is 9. So, yung 9 na yun, ihiramin natin doon sa 10. So, magkakaroon tayo ng plus 9. And then, plus 1. So, ang natira sa 10 ay 1 na lang. And then, raised to 4. And then after that, gugroup natin yung t squared minus 60 plus 9. Ito ay perfect square trinomial. So, magkakaroon tayo ng integral of dt divided by, so, square root. So, ang factor ng t squared minus 60 plus 9 ay t minus 3 squared. So, t minus 3 squared. Tapos, yung 1, ang ibig sabihin din nun ay 1 squared. Tapos, raised to 4. So, we can see now that t minus 3 squared plus 1 squared takes the form of u squared plus a squared. Kaya siya case 2. At ang ating substitution ay u equals a tangent of theta. Okay, so dito, sa integral of dt divided by t minus 3 squared plus 1 squared, ang a natin ay 1. So, a equals 1. Ang u natin ay yung t minus 3. So, u equals t minus 3. So, gagamitin na natin yung ating substitution. U equals a tangent of theta. So, let u equals a tangent of theta. So, yung u natin ay t minus 3. So, yung u na yun, papalitan natin ng t minus 3. So, t minus 3 Ang A natin ay 1, so yung A na yun papalitan natin ng 1. 1 times tangent ay tangent of theta. Kaya rin nun, kukuha tayo ng derivative both sides. Ano? So, derivative of t is dt. Derivative ng negative 3 ay 0. So, equals derivative of tangent theta is secant squared theta d theta. So, secant squared theta d theta. Okay. So, magsasubstitution na tayo ngayon. So, meron tayong integral sign. So, let's copy the integral sign. So, ito siya. And then dt. So, dt equals secant squared theta d theta. So, yung dt, papalitan natin ng secant squared theta d theta. So, secant squared of theta d theta. Tapos meron tayong division line, no? Division line. Tapos meron tayong square root. Square root. And then yung t minus 3 ay equal siya sa tangent theta. Yung t minus 3 natin. So, tangent of theta. Naka-squared ang t minus 3. Kaya i-squared din natin to. So, tangent squared theta. And then, 1 squared ay yun yung 1. So, plus 1. Now, naka-raise sa 4. Kaya, re-raise din natin sa 4. Kaya rin nun, yung tangent squared plus 1 equal din siya sa secant squared of theta. So, papalitan natin siya ng secant squared of theta. So, meron tayong secant squared of theta d theta divided by, so, square root. So, tangent squared plus 1 o tangent squared theta plus 1 equal din siya sa secant squared of theta. Secant squared of theta. Tapos raised to 4. So, square root of secant squared theta equals secant theta. So, I will have integral of, so, secant squared theta, yung ating numerator, no? D theta. So, divided by, so, square root ng secant squared ay secant of theta. Secant of theta. Tapos naka-raise siya sa 4. Kaya magiging secant raised to 4 of theta. So, dito, we can now cancel secant squared of theta. No? Cancel natin secant squared theta. So, wala na ang secant squared theta. So, ang natira na lang sa numerator ay yung d theta. So, equals, so we have the integral of d theta divided by, so ang natira sa secant to the 4th ay secant squared of theta. Now, 1 divided by secant squared equals cosine squared. So, equal siya sa integral of cosine squared of theta d theta. So, integral of cosine squared theta d theta is not readily integrable. So, it will become integrable if we are going to use the identity for cosine squared na 1/2 1 plus cosine of 2 theta. Okay? So, ang tamang identity na gagamitin natin dyan sa cosine squared theta d theta ay 1/2 1 plus cosine of 2 theta d theta. Okay. So, ang gagawin natin ngayon, para kita natin ang integration, ay multiply natin yung 1/2 sa loob at paghiwalay natin yung integration ng bawat term. So, 1/2 times 1 times d theta. So, magkakaroon tayo ng 1/2 integral of d theta. And then plus, no? So, 1/2 times cosine 2 theta d theta. So, we will have 1/2 integral of cosine 2 theta d theta. Okay. So, integral of cosine 2 theta d theta will become integrable kung meron tayong exact derivative ng 2 theta sa integrand. So, dahil ang derivative ng 2 theta ay 2d theta, dahil wala tayong 2 doon, ang gagawin natin ay maglalagay tayo ng 2 o magmumultiply tayo ng 2. So, we'll have 1/2. So, integral of d theta plus 1/2. Tapos, integral of cosine 2 theta. So, I repeat, ang derivative ng 2 theta ay 2d theta. Okay. And at the same time, dahil nag-multiply tayo ng 2, at the same time, mag-multiply din tayo ng 1/2. Dito natin sa labas lalagay. Para hindi mabago yung ating problem na 1/2 integral of cosine 2 theta d theta. So you see, 1/2 times 2 ay equal din sa cosine of 2 theta d theta. Katulad lang siya noon. No? So this is now readily integrable. Integral of cosine u du. No? So magkakaroon tayo ng sagot na 1/2 integral of d theta equals theta. And then plus. And then 1/2 times 1/2. And integral of cosine 2 theta, 2d theta equals sine 2 theta. Sine 2 theta and then plus c. Okay. So, itong sine 2 theta ay gagamitan natin ng double angle identity. No? So, meron tayong 1/2 theta plus 1/2. So, times 1/2. So, yung sine 2 theta equal din sa 2 sine of theta times cosine of theta and then plus c. Cancel ngayon ang 2, no? So, natiran tayo ng 1/2 of theta and then plus 1/2. Tapos meron tayong sine theta and then cosine theta plus c. Okay. So, yung ating sagot, hindi natin iiwanan in terms of theta, sine theta, cosine theta. So, ang gagawin natin, hanapin natin yung equivalent niyan in terms of t. Dahil ang problem natin ay in terms of t. No? Yan yung ating problem. Integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 squared. So, babalik tayo dito sa ating substitution. No? Para makita natin ang equivalent ng theta, ng sine theta at ng cosine theta in terms of t. Okay? So, from t minus 3 equals tangent theta. So, ito equal din siya sa tangent theta equals t minus 3 divided by 1. Oh. So, tangent theta also equal to t minus 3 divided by 1. So, t minus 3 divided by 1 also equal to t minus 3. And by definition, tangent is opposite divided by the adjacent side. So, ito ay opposite. Ito namang 1 ay adjacent side natin, ano? Okay. So, after that, draw the right triangle defined by this equation. So, drawing natin yung right triangle. Okay? So, let us say that this is the angle theta, no? So, the opposite side is t minus 3 with respect to angle theta. So, opposite side natin ay t minus 3. The adjacent side is 1. Okay? So, ito yun. And then, by Pythagorean relation, no, the hypotenuse will become the square root of the square of t minus 3. So, t minus 3 squared plus the square of 1. And 1 squared equals 1. Okay. So, from here, no, dyan natin kukunin yung value ng sin theta at saka cosine theta. No, sin theta and cosine theta. Now, what is sine of theta? So, hanapin natin ngayon ang sine of theta. So, sine theta is opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. So, sine theta equals t minus 3 divided by the hypotenuse square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. Now, what is cosine theta? So, cosine theta is adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. I repeat, cosine theta is adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. So, cosine theta equals the adjacent side, 1, divided by the hypotenuse. Square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. So, square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. Okay. Now, ano naman ang theta in terms of t? So, babalik tayo dito sa ating substitution. Dito sa tangent theta equals t minus 3. So, dito, if we are going to solve for theta, then theta equals arctangent of t minus 3. So, that will be the value of theta in terms of t. So, theta equals arctangent of t minus 3. T minus 3. Okay. So, let us now write our answer, in terms of t. So, meron tayong 1/2. Tapos, yung theta na yon equal siya sa arctangent of t minus 3. Arctangent of t minus 3. So, arctangent of t minus 3. Okay. Plus 1/2, no? So, plus 1/2. And then, sine of theta. So, you see, sine theta equals t minus 3 divided by square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. So, papalitan natin siya nun, no? So, meron tayong t minus 3 divided by square root t minus 3 squared plus 1. And then times cosine of theta. Then cosine of theta, as you can see, equals siya sa 1 divided by square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. So, times 1, 1 divided by square root of t minus 3 squared. T minus 3 squared plus 1 and then plus c, Okay, so yung common factor natin ay 1/2. So labas natin yung 1/2. So equals sa 1/2. Okay, so natira dito arc tangent of t minus 3. Arc tangent of t minus 3. And then plus. So dito, meron tayong 1 times t minus 3 times 1. So ang sagot niya ay t minus 3. So t minus 3. So divided by, so yun, pag minultiply natin yung dalawa na ito, square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1 and square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1, the product is t minus 3 squared plus 1. So t minus 3 squared plus 1 and then plus c. Okay? Now, yung t minus 3 squared plus 1 ay galing siya sa t squared minus 60 plus 10. No, t squared minus 60 plus 10. So, susulat natin yung t minus 3 squared plus 1 ng t squared minus 60 plus 10. Okay. So, para sa final answer natin, so magkakaroon tayo ng 1/2. And then, arc tangent of t minus 3. And then, plus, so, yung numerator natin na t minus 3. So, divided by, So, subset, yung t minus 3 squared plus 1 equals siya sa t squared minus 60 plus 10. So, t squared minus 60 plus 10 plus c. At ito na yung ating sagot. This is now our answer. So, final answer natin, 1/2 arc tangent of t minus 3 plus t minus 3 divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10. Okay. So, yung ating problem, integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 quantity squared. So, integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 quantity squared equals 1/2 arc tangent of t minus 3 plus t minus 3 divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 plus c. Okay. So, solution 2 tayo, ating example number 2 under case 2 sa integration by trigonometric substitution. So, ito yung ating problem, Integral of dt divided by t squared minus 60 plus 10 quantity squared. So, nire-write natin siya. So, equal din siya sa integral of dt. So, divided by, and then square root of t squared minus 60, and then plus 9. And then plus 1 raised to 4. Okay. So, nakita na natin ito kanina sa ating unang example, So, ating unang solution. So, ginawa natin ay dinivide natin yung 6 by 2, tapos ni-squared natin, kaya naging 9. So, completing the square ang tawag natin doon. At yung 9 na yun, hiniram natin sa 10, kaya 1 lang ito. So, yun namang square root Ang ibig sabihin, raised to 1/2 times 4, so equal din siya sa 2. No? Kaya rin group natin yung t squared minus 60 plus 9. Okay? Kaya rin magpa-factor tayo. Integral of dt divided by, so square root. Square root of t minus 3 squared. T minus 3 squared plus 1 raised to 4. So t minus 3 squared plus 1 takes the form of square root of u squared plus a squared. Kaya siya case number 2. At ang ating substitution, u equals a tangent of theta. Okay? So, let u equals a tangent of theta. So, yung u natin ay yung t minus 3. So, t minus 3. Ang a natin ay yung 1. So, yun yung a natin. So, 1 times tangent of theta equals tangent of theta. Okay. Kaya rin kukuha tayo ng derivative both sides. So, derivative of t minus 3 is dt. Derivative of tangent of theta is the secant squared of theta d theta. So, secant squared theta d theta. Okay. At from here, no? So, ibig din sabihin nito, tangent theta equals t minus 3 divided by 1. T minus 3 divided by 1. Okay. So, yung tangent by definition is opposite divided by the adjacent side. So, ito ay opposite. Ito naman ay adjacent side natin. So, let us draw now the right triangle defined by this equation. Okay? So, let us say that this is the acute angle theta. So, the opposite side is t minus 3. T minus 3. The adjacent side is 1. Okay. And then by Pythagorean theorem or Pythagorean relation, the hypotenuse equals the square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1 squared or 1. So dito, ang gagawin natin, hahanapin natin yung equivalent ng square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1 in trigonometric function. So, kinakailangan natin involve, syempre, yung hypotenuse at yung may side na constant na 1. So, hypotenuse, adjacent. So, that's secant of theta. So, secant of theta equals, so the hypotenuse divided by the adjacent side. So, equal siya sa t minus 3 squared, square root, plus 1, divided by 1, or square root of t minus 3 squared plus 1. Okay, so, kaya nun, magsasubstitution na tayo. So, balik tayo dito sa ating problem. So, we have integral sign, ito siya. As yung dt, so, equal siya sa secant squared theta d theta. So, papalitan natin yon ng secant squared theta d theta. So, secant squared of theta d theta. Tapos, we have the division line. And then we have t minus 3 squared plus 1 square root. So, you see, equal siya sa secant theta. So, secant of theta. Tapos naka-raise siya sa 4. Kaya magiging raise to 4 din to. No? Okay. So here, cancel ang secant squared theta. No? So, cancelin natin ang secant squared theta. Okay? So, ang natira na lang sa numerator ay yung d theta. So, equals integral of d theta divided by, so natira na lang dito ay secant squared of theta. So, secant squared of theta. Now, 1 divided by secant squared, 1 divided by secant squared equals siya sa cosine squared of theta. So, integral of cosine squared of theta d theta. And the appropriate identity for cosine squared theta to make the integral integrable is 1/2 1 plus cosine of 2 theta d theta. Tapos nun, multiply natin yung 1/2 sa loob at paghiwalayin natin ang integration ng bawat term. So, we will have 1/2 integral of d theta plus 1/2 integral of cosine 2 theta d theta. So, nakaroon tayo ng 1/2 integral of d theta plus 1/2 times 1/2 integral of cosine 2 theta times 2 d theta. So, ang ginawa natin, nag-multiply tayo ng 1/2 at ng 2 para yung cosine 2 theta, 2 d theta ay maging integrable. Okay. Tapos, pwede na tayo mag-integrate. So, meron tayong 1/2 integral of d theta equals theta. And then, plus 1/2 times 1/2. So, integral of cosine 2 theta times 2 d theta ay sine 2 theta. Sine 2 theta and then plus c. Okay. Kaya yun, yung sine 2 theta ay gagamitin natin ang double angle identity. So, meron tayong 1/2 of theta plus 1/2 times 1/2 and then times 2 sine theta cosine theta and then plus c. So, cancel ngayon yung 2 rito. So, meron tayong common factor na 1/2. So, lalabas natin yun. So, kakaroon tayo ng 1/2 and then times. So, natira lang dito ay theta. And then plus. So, dito natira lang ng sine theta cosine theta. So, sine theta